Welcome back, Visions fans. Ready Player Will here. Today we're going over the brand new piece of equipment released this week with the Marshmallow raid. It's the white Marshmallow miniature accessory. Don't ask me to say that again. It's a mouthful. And I don't mean in the chubby bunny kind of way. I'm not stuffing my face with marshmallows at the moment. This is a really interesting accessory. I'm actually not wildly crazy about it, but it is interesting. I'll just leave it at that. So it's got three builds: the aim, the shield, and the barrier. And on all three builds, the HP and the crit rate up is the same. So those two stats are equal for any build. It's really the differentiator between the spirit, the defense, and the accuracy on it. In terms of the attributes, it's innately has 20% accuracy, and it has 25% resistance to 5 status effects. Now, exactly how important that 25% is, I'll go over with at the end with some calculations for y'all. But all you really need to know is that it's got two primary functions: accuracy and status effect resistance. So if we're looking at accessories in the game and nothing else, because again, I know there's a wolf mask, which is a cloth that has a lot of accessory, has a lot of accuracy. Only between accessories, the Alexandrite ring to date has been the #1 accuracy boosting accessory in the game, upwards of 40% accuracy. Really just a trade-off here. You know, this has the crit rate, a little more defense, a little more HP, status resistances. They both perform two different roles, but also enhance one primary stat. The Silver Rimmed Spectacles that ran recently, 26% accuracy. The only difference here is that because of the spirit penetration on this accessory, you really want to put it on mages and magic users only. So the umbrella of the Marshmallow accessory is a lot more applicable to the cast of characters than the Spectacles, which really meant for, magic type users. There is the Emblem of Devourer, which is up to 24% accuracy and does have some status resistance of its own. So this is a pretty comparable piece of equipment. And then finally, the Bale Gauntlet. The dexterity here actually does translate to about 4 to 5% accuracy overall, so 24% accuracy, obviously just nothing to do with status resistances. So if you're looking at accuracy boosting accessories, this one's pretty damn good. It's right there with the Alexandrite ring and does have some benefits to it. If we're looking at the status resistances though, and again, we're going to get the math of exactly how this potentially procs. The Spectacles here does have blind resistance. Elf's Cloak has confusion resistance, so that's one in common with the Marshmallow. Soul Thamasa is silence resistance. The Emblem of Devouring might be the closest comp, where it's got blind and paralyze, because it's got multiple status effects on it. And then there's the Ribbon, which is slow and stop. And finally, the Chocolate Flan, which is stun. So if we're looking at all these accessories overall, there's not a ton of overlap other than maybe like the Elf's Cloak, where that has the confusion resistance and some of the paralyzed resistance on the Emblem of Devouring. That being said, I'm really intrigued by the Petrify resistance. I think that's the only instance of this in the game. With a lot of these status effects, I'm not all that afraid of most of them from a PvP standpoint. Poison's not that scary. Paralyze is kind of hit or miss because you can still have a chance to act. It's just decreased chance to act. Sleep is really not prevalent, even though it's in a lot of characters' kits, you just don't see it used. It's really the confusion is the big one to guard against. I see that in a lot of characters, and the Petrify obviously is really important for me for PvE content, where there are a lot of bosses that can petrify you, and this is a great way to hedge against it. Long story short, if you wanted to get into the actual percentage of how it works, just to confirm how potent 25% is, and just for fun, you essentially take the caster's faith, the target's faith, and then you essentially have a multiplier and a resistance. I'm going to get to the math in a second. Let's say 2B with 50 faith uses Whirling Vortex. That's a confusion ability. On a King Mott with 97 faith. Well, caster's faith, target's faith, you multiply, or so you add the two of them, then you multiply them by this 25% minus 0%. Essentially, the chance to proc is 37%. That's a chance that King Mott will get confused. Now, here's the important thing to really remember. The target resistance here at the moment is 0. If you were to give him the Marshmallow, which has 25% resistance, well, 25 minus 25 equals 0. And what's anything times 0? 0. So if you give this to King Mott, it effectively is a complete immunity to that ability that 2B uses. Now, the thing to watch out for, limit breaks often have a 67% chance to proc, so you have a higher chance. But regardless, I just wanted to very high level briefly go over this and take questions if you had any. But when you get to the question of which build is best, that's the $1 million question, or the it's the 1700 book question to build this thing. Because it's an accessory, to me, it's very likely not going to be your main source of defense or spirit on a tank. So if you're intending to put this on a tank, which to me, I think it's probably the most optimal, just because as a tank that gets a lot of aggro, they're going to be the target of a lot of status effects. Yes, it's nice on a DPS who might need some accuracy so they can hit more attacks, and the crit rate up obviously is a DPS increase for them. But overall, I think I prefer it on a tank, but I could see a case where it's meant for DPS. I hypothetically could stack it where, have a defensive armor, and now you put Spirit Accessory. That's really thinking hard, though, and really getting, really niche. They all have the same HP, all have the same crit rate, so there's not a ton of difference between them per se. It's the second best accuracy on an accessory in the game. There's no defined role, as I mentioned, whether it's tank or DPS or healer. Like, they all have their places, and I can't really think of a character where this is best in particular. So the conclusion for me, it's not even like 100% I'm sure about this. Probably the aim build. I have to go aim, because to me, this obviously is meant to prioritize accuracy and status effects based upon the attributes of the equipment itself. For defense and spirit, if I'm really trying to hedge those stats, I think there's other ways to do it. Just to me, aim overall is underrated statistic for a lot of characters, particularly given the increase in some of the evade units we've seen with the Santa Claus coming out soon, which is an evade piece of equipment. Overall, I think it's probably the safest bet, but even then, I'm not really sold on it. I just don't think 10 defense or 10 spirit is all that material enough to say, yeah, I need this. So, yeah, overall, it's my conclusion, but I don't feel terribly strong. But that's the one I'm building. Let me put it that way. So that's it in a nutshell. Good luck with the raid this week. Hopefully this was a little bit insightful, and I'll talk to y'all soon.